It seems like things have only been spiraling downwards. I mean, look at the state of the world these days. Kids are getting dumber and dumber, their eyes always glued to a screen, crime and terrorism are rampant, not to mention that politics have never been this vile. Surely the human race has reached its low point. Man, if only we could go back to the good old days, right? This opinion is hardly a difficult one to come by. I can't remember a day where my dad hasn't made a throwaway comment on kids these days or how worried he was for my generation and their devices. People have seemed to come to the conclusion that everything as a whole is just collectively getting worse, especially older generations. This concept is called declinism. But here's the real kicker. Things aren't getting worse. It's simply not true. In fact, most things are actually getting better. Women and minorities have only been getting more and more rights. Homicide, rape, mortality rates for cancer and war are all declining. Democracy is still on the rise, and even terrorism is lower than before. But how is this possible? One look at the news is a surefire sign that society is descending into madness. But history can tell us the opposite. Terrorism and war, crime have always been there, even more prevalent than now. Then why does it seem like things are in such bad shape? Well, for starters, the way news is reported certainly doesn't help things. The biggest and most newsworthy stories are usually tragedies. Whether it be a hurricane, a bombing, or a plane crash, these calamities usually dominate newspapers. This is where negativity bias comes into play. The human brain tends to greatly overestimate negative messages while dismissing positive ones. This is the reason we hold on to criticisms much longer than compliments, and is a supporting factor in our worldview. While terror attacks will affect a minuscule amount of the population, we will view them as immense threats simply due to how our minds work. But negativity bias only affects the here and now. The reason the past may seem so superior to the present is due to the reminiscence bump and the positivity effect. The reminiscence bump tells us that humans, even ones of old age, have more vivid memories of events that occurred when they were in the age range of 10 to 30 years old. The positivity effect shows that as humans age, we tend to remember positive events more frequently than the negative ones. The compound effect of these concepts is that humans remember events from their youth, and most importantly, the positive events. This paints a picture of a more favorable childhood/young adulthood than the one that actually occurred. In contrast to one's younger years, today may seem much worse when, in reality, it's quite the contrary. For many Americans, the current political state of our country is a huge step back, and I'm not disparaging that opinion. But the world is not going to stop spinning because Donald Trump was elected president, or because of another terrorist attack. Sometimes it's important to take a step back and look at the bigger picture and how far we've come, because maybe someday in the future, you'll look back and think of now as the good old days.